You're listening to Making Money Online with Lisa Johnson, the podcast that tells you what it really takes to build a business and the simple steps to get you there. I'm determined to share with you the reality of easy, simple business marketing tips to make passive income so that you can start making money online.
I'm so excited to tell you about Well the brand, which is founded by my friend Nikki Gundy and Sean Lehman. Well is a female lifestyle brand, and it celebrates being active and living well in hoodies and sweats that make you look and feel great. And you know, I've started my leisure wear phase right now, so it's perfect for me. If you're looking for great fitting, affordable active wear, your next favorite sweatshirt, or accessories that help you live, move, and travel well, go check out Well the brand at www.wellthebrand.com. For the final time, I can't believe I'm saying that. Welcome to the podcast. So this is still a duet episode, but
a duet.
Yeah. It's not a solo episode.
No. Oh, sorry to interrupt.
Sam is here. I didn't even get to introduce it because he's already interrupted me. So this is the final episode of Making Money Online. I decided a few months ago that this podcast has served its purpose. I've loved doing this podcast. Do you know that we've done 165 episodes of the podcast? It has been one of the biggest podcasts out there. It is still, even now, in the 0.5% of podcasts globally. It has had hundreds and thousands of downloads, and it has got the #1 UK business podcast, which is really hard to get. So I was really proud of that. And we've had some amazing guests on with brilliant advice, and I've absolutely loved doing it. But a few months ago, I realized, and you probably have, if you follow me anywhere else, you know, on social media, or you've heard me talk, you will know that my views have really changed on, it's not just the money. Like, we won't be happy with just the money. And I think when I started my business, I thought if I could just make the money, then everything would be sorted. I would be happy. I would feel fulfilled. And as time has gone on and, you know, I've become a multimillionaire and I've now made over 20 million, I can tell you for sure, money will not make you happy. It will open amazing doors. It will give you opportunities. It will definitely solve some of the biggest problems. It definitely does all of those things, but it didn't give me fulfillment. And I think that's because we're bigger than that. You know, as people, there's more to us than just what we can have. There's more to it. There's more to life than that. And so I wanted a podcast that, first of all, is a bit less serious. Business can be really serious, can't it? Like, we're talking about some really serious topics. I want it to be a bit less serious. I want it to be a podcast that doesn't just talk about business, but talks about life and everything. I don't want there to be any topics that I'm not allowed to talk about because, as you know, I'm quite opinionated. And I wanted to do it with somebody that often has different opinions to me, but also who I can have a laugh with, because it should be fun, right? And that's why the new podcast, which is going to be called At Home with the Johnsons, will be a podcast that's not just me. It's me and Sam.
It's me too.
Me.
No, I haven't gone there. Don't worry.
And lots of other guests that we'll have on as well. But it will always be me and Sam. Sam is my husband, if you don't know that already. Hopefully you've listened to a few of these podcasts before, so you might know. So it'll be me and Sam, and maybe some other members of the family too. Albert told me he needed to come on because he has some things to say. So maybe that will happen at some point. But we're going to talk about everything. And, you know, we do have quite a difference of opinion, don't we?
We do, yeah. I think if we'd have been put together on one of those internet dating sites when we first started, there's not a chance that we would have been matched, because we do have very conflicting views on a lot of things. I think our fundamentals are the same. Values, our ethics, our integrity, those things that really matter are important. They are shared, but there are a whole host of differences of opinions. Yeah. So yeah, I think we do disagree on a lot of stuff. But what I would say, without getting too kind of slushy, is you've kind of taught me over the last few years that it's okay to have a disagreement and it doesn't have to be an argument, which is something that I think a lot of people could do with learning, especially in the online world.
Yeah, because we are allowed to have different of opinions. That shouldn't cancel anyone out.
And I mean, this wasn't the actual topic we're talking about today, but we might as well go there as it's in my head, because it will be out of my head in about 10 seconds, is the art of debating seems to be dying, because if you voice a different opinion in an articulate and mature way, it seems that a big chunk of people will take that as a personal attack and then try and shut you down.
Well, yeah, they'll be offended.
Yeah.
And if you're offended or triggered by something, you're no longer, you then get cancelled.
Yeah, and I'm surely we teach our kids the art of having an opinion. We've always encouraged them to have an opinion. It's important that they do, that they have thoughts and they want to investigate different things, but they should also be allowed to voice those opinions and then discuss them with other people and debate them.
And that's what we want to do on here, discuss things and debate things. We were thinking about a topic that we could talk about today to get us ready for the new podcast, which will be out soon. We'll tell you as soon as it's coming out, and we will probably do a few episodes first with just us, and then we'll go into having some guests as well. But one of the things that we talk about quite a lot in this house, maybe because of the ages of the people in the house, is what I suppose you'd call like woke culture. I don't know if you even call it that these days, but whether the offensive culture, the fact that you aren't allowed to say quite a lot of things anymore. And the reason I say this is because I send out an email that Sam helps me write every single week for our business. And there is not a week that goes by that we send that normal email out and someone isn't offended by it. Like, we get an email every week saying, I am offended by this email because, and it's become almost a running joke that I now read out the bit of the email to the whole team that has offended somebody and ask them to guess what has offended the person. And no one can ever do it. They can never find it. So we had one, we get the usual ones. Like, obviously, if I write about Mother's Day, someone's going to be offended because they aren't mother. If I write about that I go into a steak restaurant, I will get a vegan that writes to me and says it's disgusting, I shouldn't be writing about steak restaurants. We got all the normal ones, and I'm used to those ones. But we're now getting some really weird ones, aren't we?
Yeah, it's very tricky to write them. They're sort of a joint effort, the Friday ones. I might have an idea, or Lisa might have an idea, and then we kind of shape it together. I don't really know what song she was dancing to in the bedroom with Marie, her sister, when in 1986 or something. So I have to get those details. But yeah, you just never know. And
do you remember that one we got?
Oh, I said it was started with something like, do you remember when? That one.
Yeah. So we sent this one and it said, do you remember when we had those 3D books that you had to look at and try and see a picture? And we always joke about this because I can see the picture within 5 seconds. They're not.
There's nothing there.
There is a picture.
It's just
there.
A con, and people like you who want to feel a bit better go, oh yeah, I could see. I don't know.
I can't believe
There's a
you
dolphin
think that.
jumping out from
there
the
is
sea.
always a dolphin.
Oh, I don't believe it.
Those pictures are real, those 3D pictures. I can see them within seconds. Sam can't see them, and therefore they don't exist.
Exactly.
Like ghosts.
Like ghosts. We could do religion now, because same applies. Father Christmas. Anyway.
I can't believe you've just put religion and Father Christmas in the same bed.
Well, bearded man brings joy to a lot of people. I don't know.
So anyway, Sam writes this email, and it says, do you remember when we had those 3D books that you used to look at when we were younger? And someone wrote in and said they were offended by the email. And I wrote it, and I basically read out that one line and said to the team, what was the offending thing here? See if you can guess. And it was that line. Do you remember when we used to look at the 3D books when we were little? And none of them could get it. They came up with all sorts of random things. And the thing that I had a 2 A4 page offensive email back to me was, we shouldn't ask people to remember things because not everybody has a good memory.
Classic. I might use it again because I'll probably forget that he told me it. So
I just think that, like, when does it stop when people get offended? And so we talk a lot about that in our house, because things that we don't think should be something that you get cancelled for are things that my kids think you should definitely be cancelled for. And sometimes I do use words like snowflake for people that are like, just you can't say anything.
I think it's a generational thing, right? Because every generation there are strides to move on, and there are certain things that I grew up around that I wouldn't dream of saying or I would definitely call out. And then I think it's a cyclical thing where the older generation, in which I am classing myself, look down at some of the stuff that's now being said and think, oh, come on, who's really going to be offended by that? However, in another 30, 40 years, the things will have moved on, and there'll be even more, or unless we get a knee-jerk reaction, and people will say this has gone too far.
We'll get a circle. Well, I think that's happening now. I think it's happening now, because like people like, what's his name, the comedian Ricky Gervais, he says things now that, and people laugh at them who would have before gone, oh no, you can't say that, because I think people are starting to see that if we can't say anything at all, then there's nothing left to say, and then the art of just joking, conversation and everything disappears. Now, not saying, like, never say anything to be intentionally hurtful to people, but how we used to cope with hard things in life was to joke about them.
Yeah.
But now you can't do that, and so it's even harder to cope with certain things in life because you can't joke about them.
I have a really tough one having a firm opinion on this, because I think things change for a reason, and there were expressions, phrases, ways of talking, opinions that I feel had gone too far and needed drawing in, and those things have happened. But then how do you police that? How do you get to a point where you are allowed to, going back to what I said earlier about having an opinion, how do you know? And I find, of a man of a certain age, if I'm in a circle with people a little bit younger, I sometimes find it hard I might say something and think, oh,
am I allowed to say
should
that?
I have said that? And it's interesting. But what you also find is often the people who are offended aren't the people who the words have been used about.
Yeah, that's true. That is so true.
And I saw a thing the other day. There was some people selling nachos in America, and they had big sombreros on and fake like Mexican mustaches, and loads of students in America were kicking off about it. This is disgusting. This is cultural appropriation. These were all white middle class Americans doing this. They went to the Mexican area of where the town was. Mexicans loved it. They were all coming out joking around, saying this is fantastic, great to see someone having a laugh. So there's an interesting take on it.
Yeah.
If the actual people who the joke is focused on are okay with that, does that make it okay? I don't know.
I don't know.
I don't either. And this is the whole point of this chat. And I knew we'd never get a hard and fast.
But I do think sometimes it goes too far. Like, people like to be offended. So, for instance, like, you're not allowed to say you like Harry Potter anymore. Because if you like Harry Potter, that means it's something to do with J.K. Rowling. And if you even mention J.K. Rowling, you can practically be cancelled for that. But most of the people, so I don't have any firm, massive disagreements or agreements with what J.K. Rowling first said. I think she said some stuff since that first essay that she wrote, which I don't agree with. But in the very first essay that she wrote, I think loads of people were saying that she was this and she was that, but none of them, when I asked them, had read the essay. They were just saying it off other people who had also said it.
But we can broaden that into the online world. You've personal experience that some of the issues we've had with some online bullying, and there's been groups of people in certain online spaces where someone has said something and everyone's gone, oh my God, that's disgusting. But it wasn't true.
Yeah.
It's something like when you see one of those memes where it's from, totally made up and people immediately jump on it. Whereas you are a big believer in doing your research and doing your due diligence.
I go to the source.
Yeah, go to the source.
When that whole thing came out and people were saying, J.K. Rowling is transphobe and all of that, I went and read the essay and made up my mind from the essay. Rather than just deciding that's what she was because everybody said she was. And I've always done that. But it was amazing how many people who I said, oh, did you read the essay? What bit did you think was like really transphobic? They're like, well, what essay? I was like, well, that's what people are talking about, but they didn't know. And I don't mind if people have opinions either way on anything. I like a difference of opinion. I like someone to almost convince me that they're right. Because
that never happens, though, does it?
Sometimes it does. I've had my opinion changed on some big topics.
I suppose you have.
But Not if they haven't done the research first, because then I'm just arguing with somebody who heard it from somebody who heard it from somebody, and I don't believe in that.
Oh, I think that's the danger, and that's been exacerbated by the access everyone has online, because you are faced with so many facts in inverted commas that people are purporting to be true.
Yeah.
And if you can't be bothered to do the research, or if you just want a little bit of a highlight in your day and you want someone to jump on, maybe you're having a bad morning and you're looking for someone to vent at, you can see one of these sentences and think, oh, they'll do. And like I say, you've had it before, we've all had it before. And I think that is why being online has created, whilst it's an amazing thing that's given us this so many opportunities, that's the negative side of it.
Let's talk about social media. Let's talk about that for a minute. So I saw this thing. It was a thread on some parenting thread, Instagram thing, where everyone's talking about this new, it has a hashtag, and I think it's something like no smartphones for under 16. So that there's this big campaign going where loads of parents are saying we should all together decide not to give our kids smartphones until they're 16 years old. And lots of parents are signing and saying, yeah, let's all agree to it, because then one kid won't feel isolated if none of the kids have it. It's never going to work, by the way, like never. But either way, my interest was piqued as to why we want to do this. You know, our kids have had smartphones since they were 11.
Yeah, about that, yeah.
And I was like, why? And so I looked into it, and 99.9% of people agreed with that we should have no smartphones for under 16s. And they were saying because there's stuff on the internet and there's stuff on social media that wasn't meant for kids. Like, kids shouldn't be looking at certain things. And, you know, even with parental controls and stuff, people can go search for things and you'll eventually find it if you want to. And I was really curious about this because I really disagree with it. I think what a lot of parents are trying to do is give their kids the childhood that they had, or that they think they had through rose-tinted glasses, that, you know, everything's so innocent, but we're not in that world anymore, and not letting them see what's going on won't change that. I think one of the biggest things for me is people were saying, like, you know, they can see stuff about war and they shouldn't be able to see stuff about war. I think that when it comes to things like racism and bigotry and the stuff that is going on about war, the reason that we weren't very good with being an activist and stopping some of the racism and the things that were going on when we were younger is because we didn't know about it. What this has given us, the internet and social media, is access to, at a younger age, know these things exist, and so be able to do something more about it. I think by just hiding people from it, like, at what age is it socially acceptable to know that bad things happen?
I think that's actually the crux of the whole thing, and that comes down to the way you parent. Now, we have always been quite big on explaining, and sometimes we failed with this, let's be honest. We've explained about what's going on in the world from quite a young age. We wanted them to be aware. We didn't want them to suddenly, you know, to live in this secluded, perfect world, and then suddenly they come out into the big world and they have a flipping panic attack because all this crap's going on. And like I say, I think we've got it wrong a couple of times when we've told them stuff that we probably shouldn't have done. But, you know, show me a perfect parent, because there isn't one. And so I think that's the bigger question here. It is like creating a world for your kids. So if they do see the stuff on social media, then it isn't suddenly going to knock them for six and they won't understand what's going on. And I think that applies with sex. I think it applies to what's going on in the world in a whole host of different ways. And that's what we've tried to do. However, I'm not quite as in agreement with you about the whole. I'm veering towards some kind of boundaries, and I do worry about the stuff they come across. But then again, to be devil's advocate on that, I think because of the way we have parented ours,
well, yeah, like I said to Finn, they know. I said to Finian about this. I said, look, lots of parents are saying about taking the smartphones away. And he said, but then what happens at 16 when they then see all of this stuff? What's the difference between pushing it forward? And I said, because maybe their brains are more mature and they'll be more able to handle some of the things that they see or look for. And he said, but why don't you just talk to the kids and tell them what not to look for and what it's going to do if they do, like you've done? And I said, well, yeah, that is one of the things that people could do, but they might go and look anyway. I said, I bet you've gone and looked at stuff. And he said, to be honest with you, I don't like when people are confrontational online. It makes me nervous. It makes me anxious. And I saw quite a lot of swear words on TikTok and it made me anxious. So I deleted the app. And so that made me think we had done a good job there, because I don't want him to not know there's that kind of stuff going on. I want him to know it's going on, but decide whether he can handle it or not.
You want them to be informed and you want them to be educated and you want them to be aware. I mean, the analogy of that is, I think, in the Netherlands, where they have a very open culture regarding sex and they talk to the kids from a very young age. I think they've got the youngest teenage pregnancy rates in Europe. Whereas in England or the UK, where we've always been a bit, we can't talk about sex, not in front of the kids, we've got not such a good record as the Netherlands. So I was, like you said, I was proud of Finn when he said that. I think it was a very mature attitude to take. Don't get me wrong, I'm sure he's going to turn into a very normal teenager, and there will be times when he does things that we aren't so proud of. But I think that perhaps represents what I was talking about earlier, which is you don't want to shut the stable door after the horse has bolted. So if you put in the effort first to make your kids aware of what's going on and share and educate and treat them as little mini adults, then you're going to have a much better chance of success with them making the right choices when they go online.
So when it comes to like having a phone, if you could choose to have not given them the phones, because I think that there is an issue with addiction with phones, and like that's been scientifically proven that there's an issue with addiction. Do you think by not giving it to them later, that issue gets less or not?
No. And I also think then, I mean, especially the school they go to, which is a fairly bog standard comprehensive school, from what I know, what are they now? 12 and coming up to 13. 80% of their friends have got one, 90% of their friends.
Yeah.
So I think there's also a
social
peer pressure type thing going on there. I would still have given them the phones.
Would you? Because do you know what Kate Winslet says?
Well, lots of things. She said on King of the World, or was that the other one?
Oh my God, how do you not know the lines from Titanic?
Is that right? I'm the King of the World?
She didn't say it. Oh no, she did say it. Well, she didn't say it.
She had her arms out on the front of the boat.
Didn't he say it, Leo?
Couldn't she not? He couldn't climb up onto the raft or something at the end.
Is that the bit you remember?
Yeah, I'm not very good on that film. I've only seen it once. It's really long.
It's really good.
It's all right. Anyway, what were you saying?
I don't know now because you've gone me on to a Titanic thing. Right, Kate Winslet says she reckons that it's a parent's responsibility not to give their kids any kind of phone at all until they're adults. And she said it doesn't matter if there's peer pressure or anything like that. It's our responsibility as parents to just say, well, tough, like you're the thing I care about, and therefore I'm not giving you one. I get it. I just worry that we're just holding kids back from a world where technology is actually the world now. Like, we can't stop it. I know we all want to, same with AI and all of that stuff. We want to stop everything because it feels like it's running away with us. But I don't think that can happen. And therefore, do we really want our kids to not be involved in it all?
I think that's a really broad brush statement to make as well. And I reckon if you went back 30 years, substitute mobile phone for something else.
Like what?
Oh, don't put me on the spot.
Rock and roll.
30 years?
I don't know.
Well, yeah, you see Footloose?
No.
Criticising my film choices, but not allowed rock and roll. It's the devil's music, isn't it? That's actually not as ridiculous a comparison as we might have first thought. That
like Elvis's hips and stuff. Wasn't that all not allowed?
Exactly, it wasn't allowed. So I do feel that every generation there will be something, and I suppose our job is to work to create an environment where peer pressure isn't a thing, but also where they're able to make their own choices in the right way. And also the other thing is it needs policing, doesn't it? It's the same with AI. AI is going mad, the speed of it, and we're not catching up with that as far as governance. And we all see what's that's another topic in it.
Yeah, there's so many topics I want to talk about.
This one's been a bit of a stretch for me. It's like serious. I don't do serious stuff very often.
we're going to do death on one of them.
Okay. Can we also do like, I don't know, football or something?
Maybe. So hopefully that's given you a bit of a taste of the kind of conversations that we're going to be having, the kind of discussions we're going to be having. I am going to open a Facebook group because this isn't just a discussion between us. I want to know what everybody thinks. And I want to have a Facebook group where we can discuss things that we're discussing about on here in a way that is kind and in a way that people get their opinions heard, and we can actually debate things without anyone being cancelled and without anyone feeling like they are not allowed to be heard. And, you know, my opinion is definitely not always going to be right. Neither is Sam's. And maybe no opinion is right because they are, after all, just opinions. But I'll have a Facebook group called At Home with the Johnsons where you'll be able to come in, and each week we can have discussions on all of the topics that we're talking about. Some will be business, some won't be business. I hope you've enjoyed this final episode and it's given you a little taste of what's to come. Thank you for being with me over the past 165 episodes. I really hope you've enjoyed it. If you have, please come with us onto our next journey and let's see if you enjoy that as well. But thank you for today and thank you for being here. And I'll see you in the next episode of At Home with the Johnsons.
Was I going to come in on that?
Yeah, probably.
Okay, never mind. See ya.
Thank you for listening to Making Money Online with Lisa Johnson. If you'd like to get hold of my guide to launching, go to lisajohnson.com/launch and let's get you making money online.